Hello, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashim zu beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. This Shabbos is Shabbos Parshas Tzav and Parshas Paro. This past Sunday was Purim. So what is the connection between all these inyanim? And that's what we hope to demonstrate. But first, as usual, the last couple of months, we started off with Tzedakah, Gdel, Tzedakah, Shemakareves, Hagula. May it be Hashem's will that in the merit of this Tzedakah, Mashiach should come now, the war should be over, and all the Hasidus should return safe. We'll start with the prayer as usual, and today, the subject that we're going to speak about is very much connected to davening, and in many places in davening, and we'll start with Mizmor l'Seder, Hariyuladinoi Kol Haaretz. This is Kapitel Kuf, the first pasuk, and this is the subject we're going to talk about is the Korban Todah, the Thanksgiving offering. And this Kapitel was sung by the Leviim when a person brought a Korban Todah. Mizmor l'Seder. This is a psalm for the Thanksgiving. Hariyu l'Hashem Kol Haaretz. Everyone should rejoice. Let all the earth sing in jubilation to Hashem. That's the verse that we said when a person brought a Korban Todah. What's this Korban Todah? So it says in Kapitel Zayin Pasuk Yud Aleph and Yud Beis V'zeis Todah Zevach Hashlomim Asher Yakriv Hashem, and then it says Imal Todah Yakrivenu. If he shall offer it for a thanksgiving offering. What does it mean im al dvar? What does it mean im al teda? Rashi says im al dvar hida. If over a matter of thanksgiving, al nes shenasali, over a miracle, deliverance from a perilous situation that was done for him, kegoin yoyde hayam, seafarers in those days, whoever traveled by sea, it was a dangerous journey, something could happen. Those who travel deserts, and those who were confined in prison, those who were in jail and they were prisoners, and then they were released, and a sick person who was healed, for they must give thanks. Okay, see Rashi for more details. Now, this has relevance to our very day and age, as we all know that when a person goes through these things, we also have a special bracha that we make, like Kriyas HaTorah, at the end of Kriyas HaTorah, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, Hagoy Melech HaYovim Toivos Shegmalani Toiv, that the Eibishter bestowed goodness to me on the one who was really culpable and guilty, and he gave me goodness. And when do we make this blessing? When are we obligated to make this blessing? And this is a din in Shulchan Aruch, when a person goes to these four situations of a dangerous journey, so to speak. He was ill, in a serious illness, or if he was a prisoner. So now, this is something that we have to speak about. Why? For two reasons. Number one, because we have to realize that this idea of thanksgiving and gratitude is not an aspect of Judaism. But in a way you could say, we could say that this is the central idea of Yiddishkeit. This idea of this feeling of gratitude. That's on a holy, on a religious level. But the truth is, today, this is another area how Yiddishkeit always gets me so excited, because we make studies, and it takes 5,700 years, or it's 5,750 years, or however we have research that was done about gratitude, and how gratitude is important for happiness and for health. I would say the two subjects that mankind is obsessed with more than anything else is health and happiness. People want to live longer, no problems, and people want to be happy. So for the well-being of mankind, which the well-being of mankind includes these two things more than anything else, health and happiness, guess what? What's the secret? Gratitude. And this is being reaffirmed by study after study after study. And here we come to the primary unbelievable idea of Yiddishkeit. Guess what? I could have told you so. And how do we see that in Yiddishkeit? That the very first thing that a person says every single day, we're holding by 1 second of your awareness, of your being awake, of your consciousness. And what do? Meida'ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayam shechazarta b'nishmasi b'chemla rabba munasecha. We give thanks that we're alive and that we're a Jew, as we'll explain, and I think we spoke about other times. Today I want to make it short because it's getting late over here in Melbourne for Shabbos and I'm running late. It's late. So think about it, my friends. Think about it. There's 613 commandments. There's Amonis Elokus. There's so many different ways. God in His infinite wisdom could have said, what's the first thing you should do at the first second of every single day of your long life? I don't know. I'm not God. But you could have thought there's so many different things that should be done. And as a matter of fact, it's a major, major chidush. It's a major, major innovation that we say Meida'ani precisely before we wash negavasa, before we cleanse our hands. You think, before I'm going to utter a thanks to God, I should first wash my hands in cleanliness as a sense of preparation, or no? And we say no. Give immediate thanks. You breathed 1 iota of oxygen. You're alive. You immediately give thanks. You don't even have time to cleanse your hands to give the thanks. Give thanks immediately because you already had the pleasure of being alive. That for a second. So in truth, this is a very, very deep, profound idea that the Rebbe discusses. And before we get into this gratitude and how we have to appreciate it and go step by step, but first I'll go with another question connected to the subject of gratitude, which is brought in many, many Maimorim discourse of Chassidus, and that is a Maimor Azal from Medrash that says that L'osud Lovi, when Mashiach comes, Kol HaKarbonos B'Telim, all the sacrifices will cease. We won't bring sacrifices, but the Korban Toida any bottle. But the Korban Toida will not become bottle. And also says all the prayers will stop, but not the prayer of Haidah. So this is unbelievable. This is astonishing. This is astounding. You'd think that all the other sacrifices that might have more of a spiritual sort of dimension, they would be the ones that would continue when Mashiach comes. But deliverance from danger? And that's the thing which obligates you to bring a Korban Torah. That's going to continue when Mashiach comes. But we're going to be out of that danger. So what's the meaning? Now, let's first say why are Korbanos going to finish when Mashiach comes? So first of all, because if you bring a Korban for atonement, so everyone's going to be on the top level. There's not going to be any more a Yetzer Hara, an evil inclination. There won't be any more sense of sin. So we won't have to bring a sacrifice to atone for the sin. But what's the idea of why the Korban Torah continues? Okay, now let's go back to Meida'ani for a second. The Rebbe wrote a discourse on Meida'ani, which in my humble opinion, even though I'm a cockroach, a worm compared to the Rebbe, and to speak about the Rebbe's genius, but I think one could safely say and assume that the Kuntas Inyana Shel Teres Achsidis, the essay that the Rebbe spoke about and wrote on Meida'ani, could be the Rebbe's masterpiece. The essay which really includes and contains, from it you could see the Rebbe's genius and innovation and contribution to Torah literature, which I'm not going to get into that right now. In any case, the Rebbe shows and elaborates how Meida'ani, in a way, is your greatest religious experience of the day. more than anything else, because it represents that essential spark of transcendence, the essence of the Jew, which is one with the essence of Hashem, which proclaims immediately, as soon as it's conscious in the body, Hashem, Hashem, and its connection to Hashem, and it's able to override whatever deficiencies, whatever deformities, whatever limitations, whatever flaws, whatever level you're at, whatever your situation, whatever your condition, it still is throbbing. It's still active. And it's still there with power on Hashem. And that's why we say Meidani with impure hands, because all the impurities, all the darkness, all the cement, all the quicksand cannot cover up on that spark, that essence, the yechida of the Nefesh Elikis, which is there, which as soon as it's awoke, it becomes aroused and cries out, Hashem, thank you. It connects and bonds with its true essence. And that's what Meidani is. And that's what the Rebbe explains over there at length. See there. But let's now start from level to level. What is gratitude? Gratitude on the lowest level is not where I really want to go towards, but I want to start at the lowest level because this is something which is so important. As we said before, today we look at studies and we see that gratitude is so important on every single level. It'll make you better in your relationships. It'll make you a better person all round in your relationships, like we said, in your health, in your happiness. And what more could you ask for something that's going to change you? It's a game changer. It's a life changer. Every single day is going to be completely different. You could say from the day they started realizing that I have to have gratitude to before I became a different person. Like you have to change, rewire the brain and to see the perspective of how lucky you are. So the first thing is, according to Chassidus, that one of the main themes of Chassidus is the idea of Ein Mavadai. And those who learn Shayich V'Amunah the Alter Rebbe, it elaborates over there why Hashem has to constantly create the world. HaMachadesh B'Tuvei B'Chol Yom Tamid Ma'aseh Bereishis. Which means that, you know, the famous Loshen from Eitz Chaim, from Kabbalah, which says that Hashem had to make a mokum ponu, an empty space, and that there was a tzimtzum, a contraction. He made space for the world. In that space, he brought his Eirakav, and then the worlds were created. But the point is, before Hashem made this mokum ponu, there was not even the mokum ponu. It's not that before the worlds were created, before existence as we knew it came into being, what was? Nothingness. There was no nothingness. There was no concept of space that had any connection whatsoever with the sense of space as we know it. Even the absence of space, non-space, Makom Panui, had to be created. So in other words, there's no way for our existences to be in existence. In other words, wake up every day and you realize every single thing that's going on in your life, every single aspect that's going on in your life is thanks to Hashem. So now let's stop for a second. The Eibishter creates matter. He can make a diamond. You could be a rock. You could be a one cell, I don't know what. You can be what. You could be in existence of a grain of sand. Then there's something else. There's tzemech, there's flowers. Then there's chai. Then there's medaber. Then there's yid. So that's number one. And the Rebbe, by the way, and I don't want to elaborate because I think we spoke about this already many times before, that's another chiddush of the Rebbe, that when we say Meidani l'fanecha melech chai v'kayam shechazata b'nishma si, the Rebbe learns pshat that the main emphasis of the Meidani prayer is that we say, thank you Hashem that you returned my neshama. In other words, that it's your awareness that I am a Jew. That's what you're celebrating. Not even the fact that you're alive, but that you're a Jew. And that's the main point. And that causes you the greatest joy. But again, I don't want to go to the top level, so we're going step by step, similar to the Birchas HaShachar that we say every day. So you're a medaber, but then you're a yid. But you're a yid, but there's some yidden that their eyes are not working. Some yidden that don't walk in erect. It's zekiv kfufim. There's some yidden that, etc., etc., that are missing a limb. And you have to give thanks for every single thing that the Eibush is giving you. In other words, i.e., there's nothing, since we're going back to Enid Mavadi, that your very existence is attributed to Hashem, and it's every single aspect of your existence, of every single second of your life. Now, where do we see this idea brought up beautifully? By the chinuch in the mitzvah of Kabbalah Savichi V'Semecha. And everyone knows the famous question, the Ten Commandments, Kabbalah Savichi V'Semecha, is listed as one of the 5 that are between man and God. Ben Odom L'Mokim. There are 5 of the 10 Commandments, which are Ben Odom L'Chaveri, and the 5 Ten Commandments, which are Ben Odom L'Mokim. And the famous question is, why is Kabbalah Savichi V'Semecha from the 5 that are Ben Odom L'Mokim, which should be Ben Odom L'Chaveri? Most people in modern civilization and in general civilization for the millennia understood the concept of honoring their parents. So why is it from the mitzvah, which has been Odom L'Mokim? And there's many answers to that question, but the chinuch brings out a point that Hashem gave us parents because we have to have an idea of absolute gratitude on this world, and from that idea of absolute gratitude, in the physical sense, we'll be able to appreciate how much gratitude we have to have towards Hashem. Now, let's go to the parents. Mitzvahs Kabbalah Savichi V'Semecha, honoring your parents, is one of the hardest mitzvahs. And one of the ideas, again, I don't want to elaborate, is that the mitzvah never ends. And no matter how much you think you fulfilled that obligation, you really didn't. And one of the reasons behind Kabbalah Savichi V'Semecha is gratitude. You're in debt to them. They brought you into this world, your parents. And because you can never repay that debt, because you cannot give birth to your parents, that means you'll always be in debt to them. And it's true. Since they gave you life, which you can never repay them with a life, so therefore, your obligation to them, that debt never becomes canceled. And therefore, no matter what you do for them, it doesn't finish the obligation to say, oh, I did it enough. Like most mitzvahs, there is a parameter. What means you did the mitzvah? If you put on till in the morning for that day, you finish the mitzvah. When it comes to Kabbalah Savichi V'Semecha, there's no end to it. No matter how much you do for them, it's still not enough because you still didn't repay them what they did for you. And Hashem made it that way, so that from this concept, and that's why it's one of the mitzvahs, it will give you a greater appreciation of how much you're indebted to Hashem. Your parents that are limited mortals, and they're only able to influence you to the degree that they brought you onto this planet Earth, and maybe they provided for you for many years, and even maybe now, but still their involvement in your life in the end is limited. Just like they're limited, their involvement in your life is limited, and their powers are limited. But if we think about Hashem, that He is unlimited, and His influence and His impact in your life is constant, without limits, so therefore, if your obligation to your parents is so much, all the more so, kol shkein ve'in tzarich lemer, kal v'chaymer, that's how much your gratitude has to be towards Hashem. Which what they gave for you is much more and more and more, etc. And you can never really repay the debt. So that's one idea. Somebody might ask and think to himself, in modern sensibilities, it sounds a bit, I don't know, like not so positive. If it's all about, oh, I'm in debt, I have to feel like I owe them something. I'm a bal choiv to them. Why shouldn't we speak more about love, appreciation? And the answer is, so think of it like that. But we're talking sometimes to somebody who doesn't understand any other language, that therefore you have to tell him, you're in debt. If you don't want to feel it like that, they'll feel it that therefore the love and the appreciation has to be more and more. And the truth is, now's not the time to get into it. But this is very important, especially in relation to parents and into Hashem. There is a nature of a person, this is the struggle. And we have to realize that struggle. We have a nefesh alikis, a yetzer tov, and we have a nefesh bahamas, yetzer hara. There's a struggle always going on. One side is selfish, one side is selfless. One side is about ego, and the other side is about humility. One is unhealthy and has insecurities, and the other is healthy and doesn't have insecurities. The healthy person will not mind being very grateful to parents and feeling in debt. And he knows that's part of the real nature of the cycle of the way the Eibishter created the world, that you begin your life as a child and you have parents and they nurture you, and that's the cycle, because that's the healthy cycle and the good cycle. Because that's how man is meant to grow. There's a sense where he receives, and then he becomes a giver, but at the same time he also remains a receiver, etc., etc. So that's healthy. And the same thing is, since you are a healthy person, and you have positive self-esteem, so therefore you don't feel weaker by receiving. It's not a problem. And it even generates and cultivates more love and more affection between you as a child to your parent. But on the other hand, we have to recognize that there is a part of me, my insecure part, my nefesh habahamis, my yetzer hara, that finds it difficult to be indebted. Because to be a dependent at 40 years old, why should I have to feel that I have to be a dependent? The answer is because that's your real strength. This is your source. This is your mother. This is where you're really getting true nurturance and development, and where you're becoming a stronger person because of that relationship and because of that sense of gratitude that you have to your source. It makes you a more powerful person. And the same thing is true with Hashem. The fact that you need Hashem in your life and for the basics, and that you're not God, you're not the one that can take control of your whole life, that's a blessing. And that's because you're a healthy person, so you understand that you have limitations and you're comfortable with your limitations. And therefore you could embrace your limitations and you're not becoming angry. Somebody who's an egoist maniac is the one who's going to be threatened by the fact that he has to pray to a God to be able to have success in life. But a person who's a healthy person, and he doesn't have to have control, he's not a control freak, so that he doesn't have a problem with those issues whatsoever. There's more to elaborate on the psychology, but that's the way it works. In any case, so now we see from this that number one, on the most basic level, the idea of gratitude is because since it's in Movadai, so the first thing in my head that has to be is that I'm completely helpless. I'm a zero without Hashem, a complete zero. I'm not even a Mokum Ponui. Then there's a Mokum Ponui, then there's a creation, then there could be a single cell, then there's whatever. So every single thing, and that's what Birchas Hashach is about. I have to think in how many ways I have to be grateful to you, and that's the emphasis of Birchas Hashach, as we say in the morning. Then there's the idea. Okay, let's just skip to Chassidus, where he speaks about spiritual aspects of being thankful. I'm just skipping to this as a side point, just to tell you that in Chassidus it talks about these four cases in spiritual levels also. So we don't have to wait to go through the physical danger to feel that we have to have this bracha of Hagoyim L'Chayim Tevis every single day. And that's, I'm quoting you from a mimer of the Friedrich Rebbe called Hagoyim L'Chayim Tevis. When he was released in prison in 1927, he said two Hasidic discourses starting with that verse, Hagoyim L'Chayim Tevis Shemalani Teiv. And over here, at the end of one of the Maimurim, he defines the four categories of somebody that was saved from a danger. And he says, for example, I'll read you very quickly. He says, for example, there's somebody who is a chayla. What means somebody who is sick? Chayla who shenistamtem moiche v'liboy. He has a blockage of his mind and heart. He's numb to spirituality. He's not getting excited. He has a serious diagnosis of apathy to spiritual matters. Okay, then comes another level. There's Chovish b'veis ha'asurim. Asher chas v'sholom haram is gaber al ha'tov. What that means is the person has addictions. He's a slave to his animal soul. He feels he's out of control completely. He feels like he has some demon inside of him that takes control. Like anger management. Sometimes he just loses control completely. The one who's traveling a seafarer is the one who is drowned. He's drowning in disturbances and confusion, worldly issues, earning a living. The day-to-day grind of daily life is bringing him down, and it's preventing him from connecting to spirituality. Or somebody traveling in the desert, it means his life is completely shallow. He's bare, he's in a barren desert. There's no water, there's no Torah, there's no fruits, there's no trees, there's no Torah, there's no mitzvahs. He's living a life which completely, it's a desert, barren of any spirituality, of any spiritual life, of any meaning, of any purpose, etc. So, and this is the idea. We have to realize that there's these elements in every single one of us, and we have to fight it, and we have to know that the Eibishter gave us the ability to climb out of it. And we'll just skip over. This is the connection to Pashas Parah, Yeshleima. I'm making up a new word. Baruch atah Hashem, I'm sorry, what is Pashas Parah? Pashas Parah is about Tumas Mes, which is the worst category. The idea of a death. So in a way, what's the idea of Parah Aduma? When a person becomes infected, he's become contaminated with the worst possible impurity. We say there's a way out, that he can become sprinkled with this korban, the Parah Aduma, and then he becomes purified. And this is what I meant before when I said I'm going to say my own word. There's a famous question of the Alter Rebbe, Zeis chukas ha-Torah. Why does we say Zeis chukas ha-Torah? It should have said Zeis chukas ha-Parah. When the Torah is only talking about the laws of the Parah Aduma, why is it called Zeis chukas ha-Torah? This is the way of the Torah, which means to say that the mitzvah of Parah Aduma is reflective of Kol ha-Torah Kula. So maybe one answer you could say, there's many answers, but one answer you could say maybe in connection to what we spoke about till now, Zeis chukas ha-Torah, that there's always a redemptive angle. Like no matter where you may roam, you can always come back home. You could be in prison. You could have addictions. You could have clinical depression. You could have who knows what. Anger issues. The 4 situations that we could say is considered a miracle when you can get out of it. But that's the point. HaGoymel Chayom Tovis, and the Maimri says Tov goes on Torah, Ein Oiz Ela Torah, Oiz L'Shisia to the Nefesh Elikis. Hashem has given us the weapons, the nuclear weapons, the infinite weapons, the Chelik Elikamim Al Mamish that can penetrate and rise above every single obstacle. And that's Zeis Chukas HaTorah. Parah Aduma teaches us that even the person who's everything is already impure. Everything is being breached. Everything is being compromised. We've almost gotten to he's in stage 5, who knows what, Hashem Yirachim. Nevertheless, Zeis Chukas HaTorah, even when we're dealing with a situation that someone is contaminated with Tumas Mes, with the idea of Hepech HaChayim, even he could be revived. So that's the connection to Parah Aduma, the connection to the Megillah. It's already getting very late now. Everyone knows. Where does the word Haidah come from? Thankfulness. Thankfulness comes from the word Yehuda. As Leah said when Yehuda was born, the 4th son of Yaakov, Hapam Oides Hashem. She said, I'm giving thanks to Hashem. Thanks means you can see to a higher being. There's a greater power. And in the Megillah it says, Ish Yehudi Hayabishushan Abira. Mordechai was called Yehudi. He's the first Jew that's called Yehudi, a Jew. And why is he called Yehudi? So the Gemara says that all Jews are called Yehudim because we're moide b'Hakadosh Baruch Hu v'koifer b'Avodah Zarah, because we thank you, Hashem. We acknowledge Hashem as the greater being. So that's the connection to Purim, the redemptive angle, and what brought about the salvation and the rescue of the entire Jewish nation is that Yehuda, Ish Yehudi hoye b'Shushan abira Mordechai lo yichrev lo yishtachaver, and he aroused the entire nation to be moide b'Hakadosh Baruch Hu, to acknowledge and give thank you, Hashem, as the one who's the only true existence. So Jews are thankers. That's why we're all called Yehudim. We have gratitude. Jews live with gratitude. It's our very name, Shmo Milsa. Yehudi represents people that live with gratitude. That is the definition of a Jew. The very definition. And as we explained before, the whole connection. So we'll finish with an anecdote. We spoke about Purim, Pashas Porah, and Pashas Tzav. There's many stories that bring out this idea. How, when the times are bad, we always turn to Hashem, but we have to stress that right now we're going through tough times, but we should try to, somebody said once a very good line, the more you thank Hashem, the more Hashem gives you what to be thankful for. So there's two famous anecdotes that people say. One is a story between there was once an event where there was a couple that had an only son that lost the child, Hashem Yerachim Zalor B'Shtal Piten, fighting for Eretz Yisrael, and there was an event commemorating, to make a dedication in honor of the son. They were making a major dedication and a donation to the local shul synagogue. So there was the event is over, and another couple is leaving the event. So the wife turns to her husband and she says, we should also, make a huge donation for our son. And the husband looks at the wife and says, what are you talking about? But our son is alive. And the wife says, yeah, that's exactly my point. Why do we have to wait for something terrible and give a donation to honor our son? Maybe we should give a donation to honor our son, that Baruch Hashem is alive and well, and he's thriving, and he's giving us a lot of nachas. Let us give a huge donation to thank you, Hashem. Then there's another word which is a joke, and there's many jokes like this similar. But there was a person who was a wealthy man, but he was a stingy person. And he's eating in his house, and he's having a beautiful steak. He loves those rib steaks, those briskets, whatever you call them, I don't know. And he's eating, and he's choking on a bone. He can't catch his breath. His wife frantically calls, a doctor. And the local doctor comes running, and he comes and takes care of the situation, gives him a smack on the back a couple of times, sticks his hand in, takes care of the situation. The man who's very, very rich, he does feel a shtickle gratitude. So he turns to the doctor and he says, so how much do I owe you for that quick procedure? He wants to minimize that it wasn't such a tircha, such a bother for the doctor to come running from the emergency and to take out the bone. How much do I have to owe you for the quick procedure? So the doctor says, I'll tell you what. Just imagine 3 minutes ago when the bone was stuck in your throat, how much would you have paid to get the bone out of your throat? Just estimate how much that was worth it to you and pay half of that. In other words, the point is, people take things for granted. The lesson we have to take is that we should never take things for granted. And we have to remember, and by the way, I'm sorry we didn't cover everything. I just want to mention, there's a tefillah that we say every day that proves this point, that it is explained, that it means what we said now, that all the kabbanas are going to be bottle, but we know that there are going to be kabbanas that are not going to be bottle, and that's what we say in Shemon Esrei by the bracha. Every single day, 3 times a day, we say, Tzeh Hashem Elokeinu v'am chisol, v'silosum shehei, v'hoshei v'avoida l'dvir v'yisecha, v'ishe Yisrael, v'sfilosum b'havas kavarasan. So we're turning to Hashem, and we're saying that we want to restore the service in the Beis HaMikdash, except with love and favor, Isha Yisrael, which means the fire offerings, and according to that medrash, that goes in the Korban Todah. Now, what I really wanted to explain, and we didn't really touch upon it, is that the Korban Todah, when Mashiach comes, is proof positive that it's not dealing with anything negative, but just a deeper level of intimacy and closeness to Hashem. And that's what it means, thank you. Thank you means, imagine you have delight, utter delight, in Razi Torah, secrets of Hashem. And since Hashem is infinite, the secrets are also never going to end, and going to be the gift that never stops giving. And that's going to be the Korban Todah. Nothing to do with danger, nothing to do with our needs that have to be fulfilled. Everything, all of our needs are taken care of, all of our basic things are taken care of. It's what's called Yelchu Mechayil Al-Choyil and Kedusha Gufa. This is the video game that has quadrillion levels that never ends. And every time when you think that it can't get higher and you're holding by Nun Shari Bina, who knows what levels you're holding in Elikus, in Ak, and Lifnei Tzimtzum, in Aliyas and Ketz. You're going higher and higher in the infinity highway. And you can't imagine that there should be something greater. And then all of a sudden there's still another level. And on that means Kol HaKabonos B'Teil L'Hasalovi, but not the Korban Todah, because that's what the real Korban Todah is about. A greater awareness of Gadlus HaKel V'Shiflus HaAdam. And the person who merits to be in the presence of infinity and greatness, never ceasing to be marveled about that level of infinity and greatness. Because that's the whole point. That's what makes infinity, that it doesn't end. Could you imagine that you're in infinity, you thought you grasped infinity, you thought you became intimate with infinity, but then there's another level which is even more infinite, whatever that means. And that's exactly what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. And for that reason, we're going to keep on having, thank you Hashem. So the Eibusha should help, that it should be in such a way now, me'ein, Olam Haba, that we experience levels of Hashem's goodness, B'Teiva Nirav Hanigla, and see Gili Elikus, Hariyol Hashem Kol Haaretz. That's why we say that when a single person brought a Korban Todah, it's meant to elevate the world to come to a greater awareness and a greater consciousness of Hashem's infinity. And the Eibusha should help that the more we learn about this concept of Gadlus HaKel, the greatness of the Eibishter, the more that will bring closer to us, that we should be able to see it immediately. The greatness of the Eibishter, Kimitzeis Chomeres Mitzrayim, Aren Neflois, Begula Mitzvah Shlema, take it from Miyad, Mamish, posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisborech, your man in Melbourne.